Yep. A lot of pure damage, arguably, again, one of his best heroes, and they pick the Quap. Okay. Now, I personally have not seen Dark Mago play this hero a lot. Of course, I mean, he's a mid laner. He's going to play Queen of Pain, but I wonder if this is going to be more of a farm-oriented style than really Dark Mago typically plays with his team. And of course, you are going to have this Ember Spirit just setting up plays constantly for you. I can't imagine that we're going to see the Quap get counterpicked and then we see them kind of move things around. At the same time, if Infamous really wants to, they could just pick Kunkka right now. And of course, you are picking Kunkka into Timbersaw. That's a little bit of a question mark, but you're also picking it versus Ember Spirit and Queen of Pain. And if it is going to be the Queen of Pain mid, I feel like we're barreling towards more of these lane counter matches and these pickups that really all day, that's been the name of the game. Whether or not you can get the lane setup you want and whether or not you're willing to pick heroes into it. Instead, they go
Okay.
for the Invoker. This is a lot safer, and it's also more of a forcing move. And you're not playing into any more strength heroes as they do. You know, they've got Tiny Omni. Just cut him off now. But I like the Invoker pick. Slows down the Queen of Pain as well. If you do ever get hit by that EMP, it's definitely a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly slots in quite nicely for them, and it's a hero that, in a lot of situations, maybe isn't the tankiest in the world, but you have so much utility, so much extra lockdown that can be applied that you can really kind of get it going. But much like the Queen of Pain on the opposing side, Invoker does always have that potential pitfall where you start moving your way out of the middle lane. You need to succeed with those rotations, otherwise we have seen so many mid invokers just drop off and play catch up really for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and now with the Faceless Void ban, they're proposing a really interesting question here. It's whether or not this Tiny is actually going to be the carry if Sladen, who actually is pretty well studied up on that hero, and then they have a 4 Tiny and then a DP3. The only problem is in that respect, Tiny 4 has only gotten worse. A lot of the aspects of this hero being now intertwined with Grow just means that you need that many more levels, and whether or not your Tiny gets levels is a question of whether or not your lane succeeds. So do they go for that combo? That's a little bit of a question mark and kind of throwing your hands in the air here. At the same time, I think Thunder Awaken ban out these heroes, saying that would you realistically play this Tiny when there's a Timbersaw in the field, having to deal with the attribute shift? Is that too much of a risk that you can go for? It's an interesting question, and I think it's very well directed. Also, banning out Lumiere's Ursa, I think that's very, very smart. I think that's would be one of the few issues that Sacred wouldn't really have a great way to deal with, especially if he's going to be laning with an Ember Spirit. So any safe laner that could put on the heat is going to feel that much more effective, because even though Matthew's been tearing it up on the Ember, it's usually been at the cost of Sacred kind of having to be on his lonesome in a lot of situations. And if they do miss their mark, we saw when they were playing the Ember Spirit and actually losing with it, Sacred is the one to feel it the most in that team. But now, if you're Thunder Predator, what are you going to pick up here for it? Because I think Infamous, very appropriate with their bans here. They're afraid of the hard farmers. They're afraid of some of the burst damage. Now, you could go for a strength hero here. Wraith King is still in the pool, and they don't go for it. Instead, they go for Luna. Interesting. That's not an initiator. They are, again, really reliant on Ember this game, and it's a 4 Ember. They're really going to be waiting on him to start and make these plays. Otherwise, they're kind of running out their opponents here, and this is the same problem they had when they lost versus Hikori.
Yeah, that was kind of the issue for them, right? Their strategy up until that 0-2 loss to Hikori had been very much similar. We want to bait you into fighting us, you all of a sudden commit, and then we simply outplay you in that team fight. But Hikori were able to turn that against them, right? They were pushing into those fights that Thunder Awaken thought that they wanted, and then realized pretty quickly that they actually didn't have the lockdown and damage combination to take those fights. So Infamous could look to potentially sort of exploit that same weakness with a lineup that is going to be able to hold its ground. It has the right mix of damage, durability, and lockdown coming out really from just the 4 heroes that we see, although, well, maybe we could do to see a little bit more lockdown with this final pick, but the point remains, they could play the pace that Thunder Awaken think that they want and potentially beat them with it, but okay, they are actually going to switch it up. The TA is going into Lumiere's hands, so ET, well, Sladen's playing the position for Tiny. He may find that it's not quite the same as it was the last time he had that hero in his hands.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, the stun got better. It's point 0.3 now and point 0.2 on the Avalanche. The interval is the same. Problem is your Avatos combo just doesn't do as much damage until you get a few points up and grow. So that's really the big if for Tiny. But at the same time, strategically picking up a hero like the Tiny this early on gives you options, and it steers your opponents into a certain direction that sometimes you can prepare for. So we'll have to see how the Tiny pick is used, and clearly, it baited the Timbersaw pick if that was the original intention. We'll have to see if that's going to be enough, because I think Timbersaw's kind of a great pick on its own. But Lumiere TA, it's an interesting solution. It's something that, of course, very, very good at. It's another Lumiere hero that takes advantage of the stacks where he just is going to be on his lonesome doing his own thing. Uh, I really thought it was either going to be a hero like the TA or maybe even the Drow Ranger again, just having a hero with the silence, just being able to be super obnoxious, just really try to hard win that Luna matchup. And TA kind of does that, but the only problem will arise whenever it becomes a race towards that Scotty. Of course, Lumiere's not going to buy a Scotty. He's going to buy Blink Dagger, Deso, BKB. If Bakaz can ever be in a position to get that item, that's where the TA's back gets broken. That's where suddenly you can't really fight. And I think that's where he's going to be incredibly reliant on his Death Prophet to run in and make the space for him to choose when he makes his arrival.
Yeah, that's, well, you hope it doesn't get forced into that kind of situation, right? But as you said, would end up playing out in that way, and you don't want to really lose any of your own sense of agency from, excuse me, any of your heroes, but your cores in particular. So, yeah, let's see, as there's a bit of a group up here from the Thunder Awaken side, always keeping an eye out just in case there's some early fighting, but
saw that coming.
it's going to depend on where Sladen wants to go here, because he is moving up the ramp, and hello, Sladen. That is 4 heroes, and he is going to get rooted up and taken down. He got a toss-off before he died there, so I guess technically speaking he fought back, but that... Okay, boys. Alright. They get the first blood. It's a full-on 4 or 5-man tip to Sladen as well.
Yeah, I don't know if the good luck came out when he was running up the ramp or earlier on, but it's funny that he's the last one to type before he just feeds away the first blend. But actually looking over at Lumiere, positioned on the bounty rune here, he's done this every single time he gets to play this TA. He always sets himself here as opposed to waiting for the double hit in lane whenever the creep waves meet. So we'll have to see if this actually comes of anything. Unfortunately,
Did they
Thunder
see
Awaken.
that full move? No, I don't think they did. Affliction. He's going to get a little bit too close. Lumiere can try to help out, and actually that's a lot of help. Matthew just getting hammered, but Affliction, he came back in. That was not a good idea. He dies, and now Lumiere falls as well, and they didn't get Matthew. And they won't get Pakaz here either, I don't think. That's a nice toss back, but nothing going. Matthew survives 3 kills now to Thunder Awaken to start it off, and oh, if you're Infamous, that's probably the worst possible start that you could have gone for.
No, it's really rough, and of course, a lot of HP traded. At the end of the day, though, 3 kills, a lot of gold, and I think Lumiere not really expecting to lose his life there, but that's also where this Timbersaw, well, the Omni Knight, he's going to try and do his best here, but anytime he gets hit by that Whirling Death, even though the Hammer of Purity is certainly going to help with his trading ability, well, it's not going to help with his life at all, and I wonder if we even see A get a value point in the Purification, even though most Omnis have just been maxing out the Heavenly Grace with 2 points in Hammer, just because it's not really about them anymore. It's just giving the health regen over towards their carry. And unfortunately, that's where the carry isn't a strength hero this time around, so Lumiere won't be able to make use of that aspect of the spell, which is mildly unfortunate, but don't think they were planning on picking another strength carry versus the Timbersaw in this game.
Yeah, they get a little bit maybe, well, baited. I think both sides were just kind of trying to force their opponents into a position with some of those early selections, but this is still going to be useful, right? Affliction on this Omni Knight. As you said, he can try to trade a little bit better with the Hammer of Purity, but at the end of the day, if Lumiere farms, being a strength hero, or not being a strength hero, excuse me, won't really matter too much, because it's still a TA. We know how much damage she is capable of doing. Just need to get Lumiere to a strong start.
Really, the bigger problem is Matthew just making it away with all these creeps. It kind of sucks for Lumiere. Not in this creep wave, but the next. Everything's more or less gonna get denied to him, and A is just going to try to be super obnoxious, force Matthew to just meet the creep wave and then beat him up. And Matthew, he's got a salve, but he needs to find the time to actually use it. And they are kind of inundated with creeps right now. They can't afford to help each other. It's a lot of net worth and gold given over, but Matthew, yeah, he just has to start killing these off. Otherwise, he's just going to take way too much damage.
You can hold a, you know, a half a creep wave just fine, but if it gets to be more than that, then sort of have some issues. So he'll still get the experience, at least. That's always going to be there for him. Helps him hit level 2, but any sort of potential to maybe get an extra last hit or two kind of flies out the window. He's just going to continue to be annoying, making his way back to the lane itself. Meanwhile, over in the middle lane alone, getting pressured up a little bit there, tries to turn around with that EMP, but Dark Mago, he's got the blink. He's going to be able to sort of dodge that one out, and this is going to be a very interesting lane. So far, Alone is lagging behind, I was going to say a little bit, but that is a pretty significant margin for this point. 20 and 3 for the Queen of Pain, 12 and 3 for your Invoker.
Yeah, and the other problem about this matchup is really you forfeit all rune control over to the Queen of Pain. Unless you're sending a Forge Spirit to one of the rune spots, you never really can get that out of her bottle, but that is a massive part of slowing down the Quap. Not just that, actually hitting him with the EMP, you always have to follow it up and time it relatively perfectly with the Cold Snap, but yeah, bottom, losing the Luna. Nice toss.
Sladen got the toss back to start it off, and in fairness to Bakaz, he ran all the way through the tree line afterwards, so he was able to survive for quite some time, but Oscar has the angle and a level 2 Crypt Swarm, and it's going to be your Luna taken down, so, well, a little bit of revenge for Infamous. They get their first kill after dropping the first 3 of the match, and that's something Bakaz is going to have to be very sort of concerned with, because Panda, in terms of defensive strength, Sladen is going to get to you if he really wants to, right? There's not going to be a whole lot he can do to sort of keep separation, and well, case in point, they're going to jump right on him. Oscar does have to be a little bit careful of that cold feet. Well, he wasn't actually that careful. He wanted to lay out for the kill, will be able to get it, but now because fires back, Matthew rotates in, and they've got themselves a pair of kills in exchange.
Yeah, not too bad, and I think getting Matthew off to a stellar start, we usually see him have a stellar start. He just has a really great 4-position intuition. He's always in the right spot at the right time, and that's what gets him off to a really good early start in a lot of his Ember games. And once he hits level 5, again, that's where you have probably the last point in Sleight of Fist, or the third point in Sleight of Fist, and your damage really starts to come through. But it's really interesting seeing a hero like Ember just running around looking for the picks, and Oscar, well, he's got the raindrop, so there's not too much damage here, but I think they need a little bit more.
He is going to be able to survive that one. Raindrop helping out. TP ends up getting canceled. So at that point, they weren't really looking to carry on with any sort of fight. Meanwhile, in the middle lane, Dark Mago hit level 6 first, drops a Sonic Wave onto Alone, and the Invoker was just not ready for it.
No, he doesn't have raindrops either, which is a big part of that kill. I think with any raindrop, he probably survives, but with the next Queen of Pain,
going back
too
in
much.
lot.
Yeah.
Sladen, that's a nice defensive toss.
Oh, he
the problem
froze.
is, yeah, the cold feet coming in. He's frozen up, taken down, and now Oscar, you're not in a great spot. Here comes Dark Mago even rotating in. He doesn't have the ult, but this time they won't need it. More than enough damage to break through that raindrop this time around, and we're just throwing around tips like crazy in this one. So, well, I mean, if you're Thunder Awaken, yeah, why not? You are finding these kills pretty frequently, trying to get into their opponent's heads as well. 8 kills in 6 minutes. And everyone who needed to have a strong start right now, ET, is really doing it, at least on the Thunder Awaken side.
Yeah, and that's the other benefit of having a hero like the Queen of Pain versus the Invoker. It comes down to wave clear. It comes down to if these creeps are hitting the mid tower, then we know that something is up. And as soon as Dark Mago pushes in this wave, they're going to know. I feel like Olen's going to give up on his smoke play as well, just because Matthew, again, right place. And as soon as they see that these creeps are hitting the mid tower, somebody has to take them, and that's why Pakaz is already backing off of the creep wave. They know. It's as simple as that, and maybe Panabu dies testing the waters here. He's got the ward, actually, so they feel confident enough to make this trade, and A is definitely running ahead.
2 supports alone can't do this. Dark Mago TP's in. I think he now realizes that actually clipped Oscar, so they now know he's here. And if you're Infamous, it is remarkable that everyone got out of there without them losing any heroes, because they were in pretty deep. but Thunder Awaken maybe would have waited a little bit longer for the Sonic Wave, but the circumstances forced them to act, and they're able to push back another attempt.
Yeah, honestly, it's unfortunate, but it is nice that they are able to walk out there. But it's the creep wave. It's in mid. I think Dark Mago thinking he could just maybe get the kill. Maybe Alone was on his way back already. That something like that could happen. But unfortunately for Infamous, we're at the stage of the game where Lumiere really wants to take over this mid to triangle area, which almost kicks out Alone. But until he gets his boots, it's going to feel hard for this Invoker to make those rotations, which means that you're going to keep your TA out of that triangle area a little bit longer because there's really no other spot to put him. So that's where this top lane getting abandoned and Sacred getting a free lane, you can kind of feel that everywhere else.
And this is the strength of the Timbersaw, right? You don't really get to force him out of lane all that frequently, so he gets what he wanted, takes the lane away. His own farm, obviously, in a fantastic spot, actually, 3rd overall, and really put pressure on Infamous early on, a position where they're going to try to get something back in the bottom lane. Oscar has committed the Exorcism, but the Glyph sort of eats some of that duration. Now the question is, do Thunder Awaken bring anyone over here to fight this? Because, I mean, he's farming up quite nicely in the jungle. I'm not really sure he wants to get involved there, and the supports, realizing that, will instead look towards the middle lane.
Yeah, and that's where I think Sacred, he's hovering in case a fight does break out on the mid tower, but they're just moving their objectives. Oscar has to pop it, and Alone, oh, this is a gank.
The wave is in, the Chakram's deployed, Alone is dead. And that's just too fast. No one from Infamous could have even completed a TP, really, in the time that it took them to find that kill. Sladen and Affliction are still nearby, but at a certain point, they're kind of just here to watch this tower die. Although, as I say that, you see a TP coming in from Oscar. Death Prophet's here, but here without Exorcism, which Thunder Awaken should be very much aware of, considering they watched Oscar take the tower down bot. So, if they are looking for another round of fighting, they don't need to worry about that ult. The problem is, they've sort of gone their separate ways now.
Yeah, they kind of missed the opportunity there, and of course, we are barely 10 minutes into this game. You know, nobody is out of it just yet, and with everybody coming towards that mid lane, it means that Lumiere gets to push out top, which, you know, in turn means that, okay, Lumiere's still getting the most farm on his team, as he should, but you wonder where we're going to see Infamous move around now, because I can only imagine Oscar wants to get aggressive with the 10-minute cart, but don't really know if he has enough to actually make that play happen. At the same time, well, Sladen's over here with Dark Mago, and okay, we'll toss him away, but actually tosses him towards the Arcane Rune. Might be too tanky to die, but this is still, well, maybe not too tanky.
With Pakaz coming in, helping out with the Lucent Beam, that becomes not really a situation that he can survive. So it's interesting to see those plays, and this is going to get sort of maybe chalked up in the you know, pause 4 Tiny doesn't really work anymore category, but not all of that is position 4 Tiny doesn't necessarily work just inherently. I think a lot of the problem is Sladen and Affliction are trying to make plays seemingly unaware of the fact that they don't actually do any damage. These two heroes by themselves, they have to have a core. Any little two-man game they're trying to run, it's not going to take out any of the cores on the Thunder Awaken side right now.
And yet again, Alone, he has to hit the skill shot and doesn't even go for it. He thinks he's too far gone. They get the D ward at the very least, but this ward has paid dividends. And meanwhile, in mid, they get the kill.
They got the chains into the Ice Blast, and there is your sort of stark contrast. I just got done saying Sladen and Affliction can't do anything themselves. That fight starts with Searing Chains into an Ice Blast, and then they can get the reinforcements to come in and finish the job. So, okay, hold on. Can they get this kill? Dark Mago needs to be able to blink away. Does manage to do so. Had to pop the wand to get the sort of health and mana to do so, but gets himself out of there. And once again, Infamous just coming up short. When Thunder Awaken come after them, they don't really know how to respond right now.
Yeah, the interval is unfortunately not enough to keep him under wraps, and well, now that you do have that level 6 on Panda Boot, we've seen the AAs, they're just so quiet early on, just kind of biding their time, and then as soon as they get that Ice Blast, well, they've got an incredible nuke to provide for their allies here, and really, talking about Sladen again, he looks like he's going to break the smoke here. Might just be another death for his team. Ice Blast surely going to come through in a sec here. Oh, maybe not.
Careful. Ooh. That's a nice
Very
tornado.
greedy.
It means that the Ice Blast really doesn't do much of anything. It'll fly over all their heads, but Dark Mago's in. Sonic Wave deployed, connecting onto 3. They've taken Affliction down already. Lumiere, though, coming up the ramp, looking for the angle to get behind. Dark Mago has to blink away. But the damage isn't stopping. Lumiere still wants the kill. He's going to be able to get it. That's big for Infamous, and now let's see if they can find any more. The split is really going to force them, to just pick one. And Oscar does choose to go after Panda, but honestly, Panda's just kind of extra, right? You get Dark Mago, that is a massive kill going your way, and casualties on the Infamous side were kept really low.
Yeah, and really smart from Lumiere to actually show up to that fight. He's had traps in this bottom area for his teammates, and okay, Matthew. Has the other remnant, but Sladen?
Now we come to
it's
the
so
damage
sad.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, avatars ain't the same anymore. That is, that's the first time we've seen that, and that's rough. Ooh,
Oh.
nice pig pull, but
Sacred, Temper Chains in, and he will get it. So that is a sad, sad saga for Sladen. He does not have the damage for the kill. He then gets jumped in on himself and taken out, and yeah, before I was trying to say, this doesn't necessarily mean position 4 Tiny doesn't work. It's starting to feel a little bit more like it just doesn't work. He doesn't have the damage to do anything, and if you have a position 4 hero that can only find kills when he's paired up with 1 to 2 cores, you don't really have much of a position 4 hero.
no, it's rough, and to that extent, he's also having a criminally slow blink dagger. He's the poorest net worth hero in the entire game, but you can't harp on him too much. He still needs to just find these tossbacks, find the plays. He's still trying to play the old style of Tiny, but again, it's the old style of Tiny. That's where hero viability definitely comes into question here, and I like that they're looking for Pakaz here. This is really smart. They get him on the creep respawn as well, and they actually toss in Lumiere.
Okay, that's gonna work. All right. Pakaz will go down. The Eclipse doesn't work out much, but that's a nice Ice Blast coming through if Sacred can keep on chasing. The Yule Scepter did sort of dissuade him initially, but he's going to just keep on going. Nice silence, though. Out onto Dark Mago. Lumiere's dishing the damage, and Dark Mago joins the fight, loses 90% of his HP, and then leaves.
Yep, exactly what they need to do. Matthew just wasn't close enough. He actually used pretty much all of his remnants to try and get back in that fight, and okay, tides are shifting. That Spirit Vessel done, so Alone getting some very nice kills, and again, the heroes, despite their start, despite the game state, they're kind of enveloping the Death Prophet, and the Death Prophet is just making things happen.
Yeah, at this point, Oscar is absolutely sort of the rallying point for Infamous. 6 and 3. That is actually all of their kills. So everything's being invested right now into the DP, and this is the wave that you have to ride, right? Get the DP, rally around her, buy time, and that time is what's going to allow Lumiere and Alone to then be enabled. So it sounds simple, and to be honest, it is, but they still have to try and take some more fights. This is a big smoke moving into the river. See what they can actually find, though. They did scan out, so they know someone's here. Pakaz would be a great target to hit, but now you have to worry about this. Dark Mago just got to blink away once again. Every time now he's being forced into a defensive blink, and the Spirit Vessel is going to make sure he can't immediately rejoin the fight, although Alone, that's still an issue. He's still not very tanky on that Invoker. Can't afford to be too far forward, but Oscar is going to be able to clean up some sort of kill in exchange, taking Sacred out. They want even more. Pakaz has actually been spotted again. Lumiere and Sladen trying to get it onto him. They need the right-click damage. They need maybe one more to get it done. They will do it. And now Matthew is the one sort of left out in the cold. He was just trying to sort of be the man in between the two halves of Infamous. Those two halves come back together right on top of his head.
Yeah, and really, Lumiere's doing it. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's getting up on these heroes early on into the fight before we get those full reactive armor stacks on the Timber Saw. Everybody's kind of getting bursted right now by this Deso timing, and, well, they're not really able to put together a very clean fight, and I think Dark Mago, had to blink out of that silence there. There was already a trap set up, so that could have definitely been a dive coming in forward, but now the DD on Lumiere, Thunder Awaken, they're gonna glyph, but there's no way they hold on to this tower. They can't even get a kill after the fact, I don't think. They need to be so careful right now.
Dark Mago, oh, hold on. He's gonna get hit up by the Avalanche. There's a silence into the toss, into the right clicks. He's dead. Dark Mago, I was just about to say, he's still trying to finish off this Kaya and Sanj, but that means that he can't immediately transition into a defensive item, and he gets punished pretty quickly. Infamous, yeah, turnabout is fair play with the multiple tips coming out there. And Matthew, you got to be careful as well. He goes for the Sleight of Fist, but he Sleight of Fist
Again.
into the Avalanche. And
Yep.
Roshan? Okay.
That's where the change, even though maybe Tiny doesn't do that much damage with your Avatos combo, you still have the relocation, and the part of Avalanche that mattered, the actual stun, well, that got buffed. So it's been a slow and arduous battle, but he's been setting up, if anything, for Oscar's silences, and really, again, it's the Death Prophet doing everything he needs to for his team. Lumiere provides really the damage, and then Oscar gives just a little bit of control, and then suddenly Thunder Awaken need to be so careful now when it comes to fighting. Their scores on their cores are still not too bad, but I think that's where we might see them look for later timing items like BKBs, items like, again, the Scotty on Pakaz, which he's queued up for next, but skipping the BKB just means that he is still susceptible to the Invoker, to the Death Prophet, and yet again, can't bring this enough much, is just the Death Prophet is continuing to just kind of surge forward and be everything his team needs him to be.
Yeah, I think the best thing for Oscar here is that he's making these plays as Sladen going to get himself picked off there because we'll get the kill, but Oscar's been making these plays and his itemization is not overly ambitious, right? He got a Yules, he got a couple of bracers, he's worked towards a B now, so this is always something that we talk about, right? The team that builds up the early, oh boy, the early lead. We'll get to that point in a second as Pakaz is on the run trying to get away, but he's still going to get hit up by the cold snap, and they've got him dead to rights here. There is no way out for him. Yules will make sure Oscar doesn't take too much damage on the back end of that pick, and that is a big one, but this does kind of lead into exactly what I was going to say. A team takes a lead and then starts looking for knockout items, home run plays, something big to really push that lead further every single time, whereas the team that starts mounting the comeback goes for the smaller, more incremental changes that gets them the power spike earlier.
Yep, and I think, yeah, Dark Mega just ulted the stack so he could farm it in time in. Oh, alone. I didn't actually have Cold Snap invoke there, so Panabu gets a TP out, but Infamous are just running across the map, forcing their opponents back into their base. They're not really giving Thunder Awaken time to breathe here, and I think that's where Thunder Awaken, they're trying to do what they've done in games. I've seen them get off to a little bit of a bad start after the fact. They're looking to split the lanes, look for their item timings next, and unfortunately, it's very expensive. And without the Eclipse, they're not going to have that much magic damage coming in from Pakaz here. And with how deep they've been playing on Thunder Awaken's side, with all these TA traps, they kind of zero in on where Thunder Awaken are, and they know where the play's coming from, so I don't think anyone on Infamous can really get caught out here. Instead, I think they're still struggling to find their next objective.
And now there are some pretty important items being picked up. Sladen's got a Blink Dagger. Oscar finished the BKB. I think even the Omni, yeah, got himself an Aether Lens there, so more initiation, more range, more just durability, and the Thunder Predator side, or Thunder Awaken, excuse me, are they going to be ready for this? Because, I mean, how's progress on that Scotty going? He's going in that direction, but still so long to go, which means he can't afford to really be involved in any of these fights.
Yep, and that's where this game Cat and Mouse for Panda just gets cleaned up. But that's where the game is afoot. It's them running away from Infamous, and they're trying to avoid this Aegis as much as they can. Unfortunately, they just immediately re-smoke. If they get this bot outpost, or if they even just get close enough to Dark Mago there, we could see TPs flood in. This is a fight without Lumiere, though. They need to be careful on who they break on, but okay, this is not looking too good. Lumiere's coming in now, but it feels a little bit too late.
That Deafening Blast is nice from Alone to help try and keep him alive, because though he's just going to get run down. Oscar sees his target, and he is just locked in. Finds the kill. Matthew now slowed up by the Ice Wall. That's going to allow Oscar and Affliction to continue pushing their way forward, but now the Ice Blast coming through. Alone should die to this, and now Oscar, you're under a tower with an Ice Blast debuff, and Sacred will clean it up. Panda, well, he dies in the top lane, but he saves the day. Without that Ice Blast, I don't know if they turn that fight. Now, this Omni, can he finish this TP? Yes, he can. Wait, Lumiere. We don't have any backup at this point. This is a little risky, even with the Aegis in hand, and he'll realize that. Backs away before that turns into anything too serious.
Yeah, and really Infamous going without Lumiere. He stayed top to kill the tier 1 tower, and I feel like maybe that cost could be a little bit too much here. And Slayton, they're going for the easy kill. It is a silenced AA, but this is another TP out. Now he's got the toss the creep.
Uh,
Well, that's a little bit unfortunate, but for Thunder Awaken, that was really everything there. They still do die on the Luna because his game is still a little bit slowed down, but killing Oscar just that one time was absolutely massive. They've got to do it again, but seeing how fast this Death Prophet can die, because like you said, Oscar's item build just got BKB, but
need to
okay,
wait
Lumiere.
more seconds. Aegis is gonna expire,
Oh,
and
no.
Lumiere's still in the fight. That is perfectly timed. As Lumiere gets taken down, and now Infamous, after all the effort that they put to claw their way back into this game, they're just starting to lose that grip a little bit. And Oscar, they
Wanna
willing to
force
dive the
his
tower.
BKB.
Oh, Sacred, okay, he wants in. There's the BKB, and there's the turnaround. They didn't know Alone was there. They know now. It's a little bit too late, though. Sacred's taken down. Dark Mako, you don't have your ult. You don't have a blink out. He blinks into the fight, gets silenced up, but he's not going to get punished for it. In fact, it's Alone who gets taken down instead. And now Oscar's in some trouble. He may have to fall back. Because doesn't want to let him, though. The Yule Scepter's going to be popped defensively. Look at Slayton coming in, dropping down the Avalanche. It's going to be enough to take out Oscar, at least. And excuse me, take out Dark Mago. Got my side swap there, but Because cleans up. Double kill on the back end. Oscar and Slayton dead. This push on the tier 2 needs to wait for the creeps. There we go. They're going to be able to do it. So for a brief moment, ET, I thought maybe Infamous have a route back in with Sacred getting sort of baited into it, but even with Sacred and Dark Mago dead, Thunder Awaken really just get what they want there. They take the fight, they take the tower, and because, well, I was sort of jokingly saying earlier, you know, how's the progress towards that Eye of Scotty? It's looking pretty damn good now.
Yeah, and that really is the biggest thing for Thunder Awaken. All of that gold got shoved into the Luna's face, and now, whenever Roche becomes the new objective, you can only imagine that Thunder Awaken are going to feel way more confident in taking that fight. And at the same time, you look over at Oscar, where now 2 deaths post his BKB purchase. Well, now that's all you have. That's all you have to work with. And as that timer gets lower and lower, it's the reinitiation that becomes the new problem. How you're actually able to utilize the BKB in the fight, whether or not it gets popped too early, that'll become the new question until he gets something like a Lotus Orb or another Dispel of his own. And that's where, is AA going to be enough of a counter? And Pandaboo is just playing out of his mind. He's doing just such a fantastic job of actually staying alive and staying back and having that just perfect timing. And now, Matthew finished he's also just a huge winner from that fight. He's got another item to play with, and he just is going to get so many more chains off. And, well, smoke up. They're going to look for another engagement. And this is into Infamous, who previously they wouldn't even look to fight, but until Lumiere has BKB, they need to be so careful. They cannot afford to lose their TA again.
Somebody, yeah, Matthew did pop. Now Sacred will as well, but they're trying to sort of maintain.
They see him on the trap.
This is going to go down. Thunder Awaken looking like they might just want to back off, but look at this. Matthew and Dark Mago, they're still getting the angle. There's going to be the Yules down. Ice Blast coming through.
Oh,
Root
no.
in place. Lumiere's going to get hit up, and he is just knocked down. Matthew actually pushing forward, looking to see who else was in the area. He will get onto Affliction. Should be a relatively easy secondary kill, but like a little bit more. Slayton hasn't left yet. Now he'll go for the TP home. Should be enough to get him away safely, but Thunder Awaken so incredibly patient there, ET. Even when a couple of their heroes pop, they don't rush in until they know that they find a target, and Lumiere just kind of walks up to them.
Yeah, and Lumiere, he already bought the crit stick, but I can only imagine he's going to be a little bit upset with his purchase if this game continues to turn. And ooh, thankfully for him, it is the longest possible Roche timer, so he will have time to, if not correct his mistake, think about whether or not he wants to commit for that type of item choice, because right now, Thunder Awaken are just kind of marching all over the map, and until they narrow the fight a little bit for Infamous, your heroes are kind of playing at a disadvantage now. And okay, you got the Ag Shard, picked up on Oscar, just bought anything to feel a little bit stronger in these team fights, but we haven't seen the EXO used. We haven't gotten that perfect placement of it, at least in the past 3 or 4 minutes, and that time has just given everything for Thunder Awaken to make their full recovery, and that's what it is. They are just completely back in this game because even waits on the Scotty to finish a full BKB, But you look at him, and he's only one component away from his Scotty, so he has just completely eclipsed the TA.
Yeah, that is incredible. You go from a situation where Pakaz was looking at the Scotty as a borderline sort of pipe dream. Now he can purchase a full BKB instead of finishing the Scotty, and is still sort of on track to get it in a timing that's still going to be beneficial and relevant. So a whole lot sort of changing over the last couple of fights to get Thunder Awaken not just back into it, but as we see, 5k up in a position of strength.
Yeah, I think if Infamous go for another fight, I'd love to see the blink on Oscar, and okay, that's why he just queued up, just so he can actually get on top of the AA first. If he's the only one getting ice blasted, that's something they can deal with, but they need to force Pandabu's hand, and I think that's where Sladen, he's got bigger problems. He's the only one really giving that secondary control over the Dark Mago, but you look at Dark Mago, he's got a BKB. He's not really going to be too afraid, and I think that's where, unfortunately for Infamous, they have to be so concerned with taking a short fight. They need to get the initiation, they need to run down their opponents, and then they need to look and retreat and look for a high ground, whereas Thunder Awaken, they could just fight all day long, just coming in and out and in and out. It's what all of their heroes are very capable of. And now Hunting, if they found anybody bottom, this would be a huge mistake from Lumiere, but looks like he's going to dodge it out. But no BKB. He's just completely committed for the Daedalus. He is really reliant on his team setting him up here to actually do damage. If he gets started on, though, he is absolutely helpless.
Yeah, as we saw in the last fight, once they were able to jump on him, he was dead before anyone in his team could really even think about getting into a position to save him, let alone actually pull it off. So, very risky, but every once in a while, being a glass cannon can work out, but this is going to get a little bit awkward. They were trying to sort of scout the Roche Pit. They get scouted instead, and Matthew, not dead yet. He actually sets up the bait play. Is maybe unintentional, but who cares? It works to perfection. Lumiere will fall. Matthew even buys back to rejoin this fight. And Infamous, they're just going to get absolutely torn apart. Affliction taken down alone, just has to run. Dark Mago, though, thinking about chasing him. Sacred's coming through as well, but they have to guess where he is, and they're not going to make it to him in time. The TP will complete, but Infamous, that just, again, really fails to pay off for them. They wanted to check Roshan, but instead they wander into a fight that goes terribly.
Yeah, and it's really sad because Infamous, they want to fight for these high grounds. They actually have control over the Radiant Triangle, but it's just getting the almost position swapped over from you, and unfortunately now Infamous can no longer even attempt to get to the Roche Pit because they lost control of their outpost. And now, well, here you go. Pakaz has an Aegis. He's going to be able to just go for the siege immediately if he wants to, not to mention got the nice little shard for him. So there's really just not a lot he has to be concerned with, and that's where Infamous, is this glass cannon build just too much? Is Lumiere being unable to stand his own ground during these fights? Not to mention, there's no easy dispel. They only have the Heavenly Grace, and again, it's a Heavenly Grace you have to time. You have to be in position because it's no longer just that persistent status resistance. So, well, if Affliction uses it, they just use everything after it. And until they get, I think, another Lotus Orb or anything in the works, you have to be even more careful on Lumiere. The only problem is, if Lumiere isn't presenting himself, then that kind of leaves the job over to Oscar, and Oscar, without a plate mail or any armor item, he's just getting blown up, especially because he's playing versus the Scotty. It just feels like Pakaz has everything he needs to handle Infamous right now.
Yeah, the itemization has really paid off for the Luna. The patience that they had to display as well as he built himself up, really now paying dividends for the Thunder Awaken side. So all the pressure on the Infamous half. They've got to do something to try and fix this, basically. Try and get themselves back into this game. They look for the smoke play here initially, but they're not exactly moving entirely as a unit. This is a very broken up maneuver through the middle lane, and I'm not even really sure it's going to be one that works, because Reeplay's pushing in. If nobody is there to defend it, then yeah, that's going to trigger the alarms on the Thunder Awaken side, so Lumiere has to reveal himself, and that smoke really doesn't go anywhere. Meanwhile, Gaz takes a tier 2 tower, just really suffocating their opponents right now.
Yeah, and, well, they do have Glyph, so it's not like they're going to get extremely caught off guard here, but because picking up the Hurricane Pike as well, and Lumiere without having his own... Oh, the Manta!
The illusion.
Oh, no!
Manta dodge is perfect.
Oh, that is just hopeless, and, well, Pakaz's gotta have his mana pool burned out, but, oh, approaching is just getting way more difficult, and, again, there's the commitment. As soon as you use the Heavenly Grace, they know, and they actually force him in,
Oh.
but there's no follow-up. It's not like they had Sladen immediately. He still had to buy back. You don't get the continued play, and, okay, what can they do to Pakaz here? Okay, they're gonna burst him.
It's enough to get through the first life, but now here comes Dark Mago. He's looking to bully Oscar. Nice play from Affliction. He waited to get that Heavenly Grace, and we'll be able to throw it out. The problem is Picasso is back online, and the damage that he is doing to these structures is just stupid. Look at that. It just melts through it. Ranged Rack's already gone. Melee's just going to fall to the illusions while the actual heroes
You
just
can't let
clear
him
out.
leave.
Did he? Lumiere denied his own racks. Okay, why not?
You might
was
as well
going
keep
down
the
anyway.
gold away.
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well, but at the same time, letting him go after Oscar commits the ultimate, I don't know if Thunder Awaken are going to feel confident enough to hit a tier 3. Of course, once you break through it, the Rax is almost assured. It's just what Luna does, but now Infamous, they have ventured very far out here. They need to be so careful. They're just traversing underneath this ward from Thunder Awaken. I'm looking, they have a smoke, and yeah, they're going to hunt down immediately. Matthew's a little bit too far away to give them that easy follow-up play. At the same time, though, as soon as they recognize that these heroes are here, they just push in the mid-wave. Okay, let's see how this breaks.
Spig alone. He just got a Scythe of Flies delivered out to him, so he's going to be able to hex up the Luna. Pakaz can't do any damage. They're going to look to turn this, but Lumiere is off to the side. Yeah, he's dealing with Dark Mago, so their damage is not all on one target. They're two split right now, and this is where things are going to get awkward. Lumiere going to get hit up. He's detected by that dust, and they will take him down. They needed to be on the same page, ET, and I mean, they just flat out weren't. Lumiere is off to the side, trying to get damage onto a Queen of Pain, while the rest of the team, they had a hexed up Luna that they might have been able to kill.
Yeah, it just got way too split up, way too far away, and that's the effects of, again, not having this BKB. Now, this is assuredly going to be a Rax. There's nothing they can do here, but without Lumiere being able to get back into the fight, they would have had to almost certainly force staff him twice to get him anywhere near that Luna, but that would have just closed, really, the gates around them, and I think Lumiere, he's going to have to buy back in a second here, but with how he spends his life, this could just be the Mega Creeps.
See what they have in mind here. They might just let, Megas go, and I don't really know if that's worthwhile. You preserve the buyback, or actually, maybe you don't, because at this point, I mean, Thunder Awaken could probably just go for tier 4s. Instead, they're going to start looking for some kills and trying to get onto Sladen. Not able to hit him up, but they get the duels onto the Omni Knight. Dark Mago jumping in, pops the Shivas. Affliction taken down. Alone has to fall back to the Fountain. Sladen trying to do the same, but they are going to be able to catch him out.
I think it's just over. I think they've thrown in the towel because, yeah, not buying back. I think they know the position they're in. And then that's all it takes. All it takes is getting a crit instead of a Mithril Hammer, and then suddenly you can't go back. And I think that was really what kind of ended it all here as well. It's just Thunder Awaken finding their target and just catching the Lumiere so far away from the rest of his team just 2 or 3 times. Just turned the tide of battle.
That's going to be so frustrating for Infamous, because, I mean, this is one of your sort of primary rivals both in the field for this event and across the South American region in general, and you had them on the ropes, or, well, okay, on the ropes is maybe a little too far there, but you were fighting your way back into a solid position. You can see here from the graph, they were just about even once again, and it looked like they were going to be able to maintain that, but just, you can't afford to make that many mistakes against a Thunder Awaken team like this. And the second that they present any sort of vulnerability, the second, like you said, you go for a crit instead of sort of your normal, original itemization, you just get punished so heavily for it.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm almost bewildered looking at specifically Oscar's stat line here, because 10, 5, and 5, that's what he had at 25 minutes into the game. Everything just stagnated. They weren't able to really get any more fights going for them, and unfortunately, it's a sad and slow death. And of course, one that Thunder Awaken definitely threw away. They played their hand a little bit too far. Oscar had some fantastic silences. Sladen got the Blink Dagger. I mean, it was looking like it was going to be a wash for Thunder Awaken for such a long time with how well they were playing the map. And then everything kind of goes Infamous's way. They do what they can with that first Aegis, but it all comes back, for me at least, in that Radiant bottom jungle where they take the fight without Lumiere, they lose Oscar after he uses his BKB, Alone gets chained up underneath the tower, and then questions start to arise. They don't get that same good push going again, and I think Infamous just kind of scrambled to get another game plan set, and as we kind of talked about in between the games, it's when you're itemizing while you're winning, you sometimes fall into these traps that just end up throwing away what is your game.
It's just Infamous were building momentum, and I think they failed to realize or forgot why they were building that momentum. The fact that they were sort of who they had involved, what kind of fights they were taking. They just got swept up in a little bit of, we're mounting a comeback. We have momentum. Let's keep pushing the momentum. And yeah, that fight without Lumiere really just, it takes all the air out of them. They just didn't have anything beyond that point, and Thunder Awaken just entirely retake control.
Yeah, I think now just wipe the board, see what you can do. I maybe not pick the tiny early enough without banning out that timber saw, or maybe try and take the timber themselves. And again, we saw how strong the Death Prophet still can be, even in a game where it really has no business. But I think honestly, Infamous, just wipe the board, just play another game.
And yeah, a rare loss now for the Death Prophet. That win rate was still pretty high
Mhm.
up there, but well, no hero's unbeatable, right? As Infamous unfortunately have, but they still have a shot to salvage some points out of this one. That was just the first game of this best of two, so we're gonna have one more left to be played. The question now is gonna be whether Infamous can get that 1-1 split, or if Thunder Awaken will get that 2-0 sweep to, I believe that would push them up to 8 wins and would really just leave them tied with Infamous and about one or two other teams for second place. So a lot potentially on the line here as we get down the stretch in this group stage. Infamous would love to keep someone like Thunder Awaken at arm's length, but it'll depend on the result of that match. It will be our final match of the evening as well. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes here and see who can get the edge over the other in our final game of the